All right, we might kick it off. Look, well, firstly, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining this week's webinar. I hope you had a great Easter over the weekend and were able to, make the most of the beautiful weather that we had here in Victoria. My name's Peter Cargan. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for YMCA Victoria and Kingswim. Carolyn is taking some well-earned leave this week, so I'm acting CEO in her absence. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owner of the lands on which we meet today. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Today's webinar will be really a finance-focused update, followed by a good news story to remind us of why we all love working for the Y. And a reminder to please enter any questions you might have using the Q&A function, and I'll get to those at the end. So first, starting with the finance update. Since I presented at the All Staff and Volunteers webinar back in September last year, we've continued to stabilise the financial position of Y Victoria. You may recall this graph when I presented it back in July and September last year. It's really just a summary of the movement in our cash position from the start of COVID in March 2020 through to June 2021. Prepared at different points in time. The red line is the forecast cash balance when the impact of COVID first hit us. That was in March 2020. It highlighted that we had approximately 13 weeks of cash remaining before we ran out. This would have been the impact had we not undertaken many of those management actions highlighted in the previous webinars and not been the recipient of some of the significant local, Victorian and federal government support over the period. As an example, JobKeeper. The green line is the forecast movement in our cash balance that was prepared back in September last year. The blue line is the current or the most up-to-date movement in our forecast cash balance. As you'll see from that graph, our forecast cash position at June 2021 has improved from the earlier forecast back in September, which is really pleasing. We're certainly in a substantially better financial position than where we were back in the middle of March last year when we prepared that first forecast, that red line. The selling of the Macy Heights business and building, as well as the $1.1 million Victorian Government Business Survival Grant for camping, has been two positive movements in our forecast cash balances recently. The Business Survival Grant was open to key businesses that are noteworthy contributors of social and economic benefits to Victoria, and we are really pleased to be the recipient of that grant. In summary, we're in a great position to relaunch out of this COVID crisis, with the year ahead of us really focused on business turnaround and recovery. We will not have the benefit of any government subsidies, i.e. JobKeeper, or rental deferments or abatements to support us. We'll be basically standing on our own 2 feet. Talking about the year ahead, many of you may be aware that we are right in the middle of the budgeting process for the financial year ended 30th of June 2022. The finance team have been working with sector leads and the executive leadership team on the budget and priorities for the next financial year. This plan will be presented through the Finance Committee and the Y Board of Directors for approval before the end of the financial year. A big shout out to the finance team and everyone who has participated in the process so far. As I mentioned, it will be a year of recovery coupled with some investment in key priority projects. Finally, the executive leadership team and the Y Board of Directors have also been working closely on a strategic investment framework. The purpose of this framework is to ensure that we only invest in areas which are aligned to the Y's mission, and that those investments meet predetermined levels of financial return, taking into account the risk and social impact of those investments. Well, I hope all this information is useful to you. If you'd like me to clarify anything, please send me a question using the Q&A function and I'm happy to answer that. So I might just wait a moment to see if there are any questions. First question is just from the first slide. Can you explain the forecasted slight drop in the blue line in the last couple of months of this financial year? Well, to answer that, Phil, the main reason for that is just the timing of expenses when occurred, the assumptions around those when we prepared them in with the green line compared to when we're now expecting to incur them in the blue line. So it's mainly driven around some shared services costs where we had originally forecast them to be earlier on. Now we're forecasting them to be in the last 3 months of the year. Next question. What areas do you think we'll expand or invest in? Look, great, fantastic question. Look, I think that, and that's certainly a question that as part of the investment framework that we'll be working on over the coming months. And it's certainly a question, obviously we have a limited amount of capital to work with. I mentioned that FY22 will really be a year of, I guess, recovery and rebuild. But our main sectors obviously are King Swim, children's, recreation, camping, obviously our youth sector, etc. So we don't see any reason to change what we've been investing in previously. And we'll work with the board around where those best capital allocation decisions are being made. Next question. Fantastic question. Do you feel confident that the Y is recovering? I feel extremely confident the Y is recovering. Look, I think as I mentioned, just that the cash position we're in a really, really strong position, and I'm really, really confident with everything that we've done and that we're doing as a group that we'll recover really, really well out of this crisis. If I compare it to a lot of other organisations, we're certainly in a much better position. So extremely confident. So great question. Thank you. Any more questions? No, that looks about it. Okay. No, last minute. No, thank you. All right. Well, look, before I do finish up, I just wanted to share a great news story with all of you. Last Tuesday, Y Street Ball celebrated their 4th anniversary at the North Melbourne Community Centre. Y Street Ball is a free program that invites people from all walks of life, including those who are experiencing homelessness or disadvantage, to play basketball, share a meal, and socialise on Tuesday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. In March last year, the program was flourishing. We had over 35 people attending each week, and the program director, Dave Gunston, was making plans to expand the program to other locations. Now, obviously, everything came to a screeching halt before Y Street Ball's 3-year anniversary, when Melbourne went into lockdown due to COVID. Suddenly, those who relied on Y Street Ball's weekly gatherings were left alone and isolated. Dave, in a show of his care and passion, continued to check in with participants, many of whom were feeling bored, isolated, and depressed during lockdown. When restrictions eased, but the centre remained closed, Dave organised barbecues in Footscray Park to ensure his community remained connected. Luckily, the North Melbourne Community Centre was back open this year for Y Street Ball's 4th anniversary, where Dave delivered a moving speech thanking those participants who'd been there from the very beginning. After the success of Y Street Ball, Dave developed Y Street Ball Kids on Sunday afternoons and Y Street Ball Special Needs on Tuesday mornings. He is also planning to expand the program to Carlton, Kensington and Dandenong in the second half of 2021. Congratulations to the Y Street Ball and the team at the North Melbourne Community Centre for engaging with the North Melbourne community and creating a safe space for them when they needed it most. Well, look, thanks everyone. A short, quick webinar this week or this fortnight. Thank you for everyone who made the time to join us today, and I hope you have a great week, and we look forward to catching up in a fortnight's time. Thanks everyone.